We're going to focus on four things today in our agenda. The first is what's happening in the current buying environment and the pressure that that's putting on sales professionals and, frankly, putting on your buyers as well. There's a lot of complexity, a lot of uncertainty, and we're going to talk about why that requires a new approach for the seller. The second is about how you can bring agility into selling to equip sales professionals with a new way to lean into driving consensus, building momentum, and creating customer-centric buying experiences. And the third is how we enable teams to embrace agility in the flow of work. So much about building an agile approach is about not only learning the skills, but changing the way you work. And so we'll talk about how we can enable that right in a CRM. And then finally, we'll make sure to reserve time for Q&A and address any questions that you might have. Disruption is the new normal. According to AlixPartners' 2021 disruption survey, 85% of survey respondents agreed that disruption is the primary strategic challenge facing their business, and it's here to stay. 90% of executives tell McKinsey that they believe that the disruption that we've seen over the last 2 years is going to affect the fundamentals of their business. What this means is that sellers are under a new kind of pressure. If we look at the next slide, one of the things that we track on a regular basis is the increasing number of stakeholders in the B2B buying process. Just in the past 10 years, that number is up 70%. And what's interesting is that 81% of people involved in the buying process on the customer side are non-C-suite staff members who've been invited in to share an opinion and to align on the right solution. Buying has become more consensus-driven and less linear. It's an iterative process. It loops back on itself. People revisit decisions, and it creates misalignments. And this means that sellers need to lean into actively creating a new kind of value in the buying process. What's happening with customers is that they're facing this increasingly complex landscape. There are just more and more decisions to make. It's called decision complexity. And choice overload is the behavioral science which helps us understand that when your customer is faced with too many choices, sometimes the easiest thing to do is just not make any choice at all and stay with the status quo. I think about back when we were doing face-to-face customer meetings, I was going into a customer meeting and I really needed a pack of gum. And the only place to buy a pack of gum near where I was meeting the customer was a big box retail store. And so I went into the big box store and I looked at the gum rack, and there were 90 choices of gum that I could choose from in this store. And what do you think happened? My mind shut down. I had other things to focus on. I couldn't process that much complexity heading into my customer meeting. And so I walked out of the store without buying a pack of gum. This is creating stress for your customer, but it creates an opportunity for sales professionals. The opportunity is to lean in and help buyers make sense of all of the choices and the options that they have available to them. Help them make better decisions and lean into driving consensus inside the buying organization. So how do you do this and create a buyer-centric approach at the same time? To help solve that, we looked at how businesses were leaning into embracing change and disruption by using an agile approach in other parts of the enterprise. This is called enterprise agility, and it's a proven way that businesses can create good customer experiences while embracing changing requirements. And it inspired us to think about how we could apply this in a sales context. So before I share with you how we do that, I want to just ask a quick poll question. To what extent are you hearing about agility coming up in the customer conversations that you're having? Almost always, once or twice a month, or never? Share with us in the poll. All right, so almost always, once or twice a month, or never. All right, let's see how you voted. If we can share the results. 38% say almost always, 38% say once or twice a month, and only 23% say never. So between those first two, we're seeing a significant 76%, if I'm doing my math correctly, percent of the time people are talking about agility in customer conversations. So how do we lean in and think about what that means for organizations and for customers? When MIT looked at organizations that were using an agile approach to respond to disruption, what they found was that organizations taking an agile approach grew revenues 37% faster and maintained 30% higher profitability. So your customers are thinking about it. There's data to show that it's an effective strategy. Now what we need to do is think about how we take agile principles and apply them to selling. So when you think about applying agile principles to selling, what words come to mind? This is going to be a word cloud. So if you can share in the chat, what words come to mind when you think about applying agility to selling? Chat in the words and we will have a look. Customer needs. Good, yep, putting customers at the center. Variety. Easier buying, flexibility, speed, listening, I like a lot. Proactiveness, these are great words. All of these are words which are core to taking a more agile approach. So what we did was we leaned in and we looked at what's called the Agile Manifesto. The Agile Manifesto is a set of 4 values and 12 principles that were created in the early 2000s to help software developers take a more flexible, proactive, customer-centric approach. And we distilled that down into a set of agile selling principles. There are 4 agile selling principles that we have anchored around to help sales professionals take that agile approach and apply it to the kinds of customer interactions they're having and ultimately drive a more agile sales process.